Hi everyone and welcome to Pro Tools Answers, where three Pro Tools experts discuss, demonstrate and elaborate on your Pro Tools questions put to the community in Avid's official Facebook support forum. Please welcome Anders Motz.
Hello.
Andy Hageman.
How you doing?
And myself, Dave. We take you deep into the workings of Pro Tools technique to help the user community get the best out of our chosen and probably our favorite DAW. In this week's episode, we're going to be looking at a question from Fredrick, and he asks this. Hi friends, I'm new to Pro Tools. Is there a way that you can press record while other tracks are playing? So interesting question, very simple question, but we thought that would lead us into talking about all of the various record modes that we can put Pro Tools into, and of which one of them is the mode that he is looking for. So, am I driving this?
You're driving this.
My Pro Tools is driving this, okay. Let's bring up my transport window, which is ever so slightly bigger. We've got our main transport record enable button here. If I right click on that, this gives us all of the various different modes that we can put Pro Tools into. We have our normal mode, we have loop recording mode, destructive recording mode, quick punch and track punch, and then destructive punch at the end of it as well. And I think we're going to talk through each of these briefly one by one, right? The likelihood is that your Pro Tools will start off in just normal record mode. There's nothing special about it. We'll put a track into record enable mode, we'll record enable Pro Tools, and then we'll hit play. And that's pretty much the only way that we can deal with recording in our normal recording mode, right? Nothing too complicated about that. Shall I start off with loop recording?
Do it.
Yeah? Okay, so we'll put in Pro Tools in loop recording mode, and what we can see up here is that I've got a range selected on the timeline, and this is where I want to, this is the range that I want to record in. Okay, and what will happen when we hit play and record, Pro Tools will record between those 2 points, and then when it reaches the end of the selection or the out point, it will just loop back to the first in point, and it will continue recording, and then it will just loop back and continuously loop until you press stop. And what would determine whether Pro Tools keeps the take or not, and you guys can fact check me on this one, is that if you've exceeded halfway over the selection, Pro Tools will keep that particular pass. But if you stop the record before the halfway point, it will scrap that particular recording, right?
Yeah. Absolutely right.
Yes, with an asterisk.
Mm-hmm.
There's an asterisk, but we'll tackle that in a sec.
Okay, so by default, Pro Tools will just keep looping around, and it will keep this. It will keep the latest recording on the timeline. Does it put them all into the clips list as it goes round and round? It does. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't put all of those clips onto alternative playlists, does it?
So to do that, you want to go into your preferences, this is a real common preference for folks that use playlists. Go into operations, and you go to in the record section, which is on the right-hand side, about 2/3 of the way down that section right there, automatically create new playlists when loop recording. And what happens is that every time it loops, it's going to create a new edit playlist. With the latest complete take, or the latest take that's more than halfway finished, that will be the one that you see on the timeline, but you'll have alternate takes that you can refer to.
Yeah, indeed. And
By the way, I mean, there is another preference that might influence the result here.
Okay.
There is the preference also that if you record over an entire clip, that clip gets moved down to the first available playlist, which is the exact same thing.
Editing.
So in editing, you've got send fully overlapped clips to available playlists while editing. And for the one that we are talking about is for while recording, which is basically doing the same thing as the other preference. So every time you record completely over a clip, it will be moved down to a new playlist.
And those two preferences, which are really, really useful, are those apply to any of the record modes you're on. Yeah. And basically what it's designed to do, because this happens more often than you might think, is you start recording, and what you didn't realize that you just did is that your recording pass completely covered over a clip that was already on the track. Normally that clip would be gone and you'd have to track it down in the clips list, and it was a time-consuming thing. With that preference enabled, as soon as you record over a clip and fully overlap it, it'll just send that clip to an alternate playlist immediately. And that has nothing to do specifically with loop record. That operates on all of the record modes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last thing I wanted to point out, that I've got pre and post roll enabled here. You can just about make out my my pre-roll point there and my post roll point there. With those enabled, Pro Tools will loop around that specific section, but it will start at the pre-roll and will only record during the selected section. So if we turn off pre and post roll, it will just loop between those 2 points.
So it's a little bit different. So if you turn on pre-roll and post-roll, what will happen? And this is one thing that a lot of folks aren't thrilled about, so you have to kind of work around this. You'll get the pre-roll before the first take, but every time it loops back, it won't loop back the pre-roll amount.
Yeah, so it will only loop the recording range, and it will only use the pre-roll, as Andy said. So the post-roll will never, ever be played.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Which is why, for people that want to hear a little bit before and a little bit after, the solution to that is to actually make a selected area that, encompasses that whole thing.
Yeah.
Which isn't the end of the world.
Okay. The next mode.
So let's go back to the asterisk real quick.
Okay.
So one of the things that Dave, if you could please just go ahead and pop. Go ahead and just do a loop record for maybe 2 or 3 times.
Okay, let me bring that in a little closer.
And what's the name of that track?
It's a bass track that's going to be recorded.
Okay, bass. Okay, so this is the first take, and so there's something unusual, and notice there it doesn't play the pre-roll again. It's just going back to the beginning. We'll do 3. And we'll do 4, stop. Great. So what you see there is the last full take, because Dave stopped halfway. He stopped before halfway through the selection, right? Now, if you take a look in the clips list, you will find that we did 3. There we go. Something we did 3 takes. Okay. The last one was not complete, right? So what you see is Something Unusual 01 in dark font, the one at the top. And then you see 3 subset clips right underneath it. Those 3 subset clips are the complete takes. However, the Something Unusual 01, the one at the top there, is a single audio file that comprises from the start of recording to the end of recording. So that last partial take is not actually thrown away. It just, a clip isn't made of it. But that audio file is going to be in there. So all of those subset clips are going to be exactly the same length as that one. But that Something Unusual 01, the one at the top there, that's the one, is going to be slightly longer than all 3 of those takes, because it will include that last little bit before you hit stop.
Yeah,
Anders.
So I can do destructive mode. So destructive mode is... It's basically destructively recording into an audio file that is already on your hard drive. So when would you ever use this, you might ask. But one use for this might be if you've already created your mix down inside of Pro Tools. You've got a finished stereo track recorded onto a track in Pro Tools, and you make one little change somewhere, and instead of re-recording the entirety of that track, you make a timeline selection of that particular place and basically destructively record into the same audio file, meaning you are not going to get a new audio file created. You're basically destructively recording into that, which saves hard drive space and probably a little bit of time as well.
Yeah, I would say that destructive punch and destructive record and destructive punch, which are two kind of the same things, were really common in post-production in the days before offline bounces or Dolby rendering. Because it used to be, before the days of offline bounces, that if you had a hour and a half movie, if you did a traditional bounce, that's an hour and a half that you would just sit there and your session would play. Instead, what you could do is you would have a track at the bottom of your session that was always recording, and as you would make little changes, it would update all the time. And by the time you were done with your mixing, you had your deliverable file right there in the session. People still use it. I think people use it generally a little bit less frequently. Partially because it is so destructive and you can lose stuff. It's like working with tape in that regard.
Yeah. By the way, we've mentioned destructive recording now, and also destructive punch, which isn't in every Pro Tools version. So if you've got Pro Tools Artist or Studio, the two latest in this list, the track punch and destructive punch modes, are not in that. It's only in Pro Tools Ultimate. And now for the solution of the problem, quick punch mode.
So quick punch is, unless Dave, you want to take that one?
Yeah, okay, I can do quick punch. So quick punch is a mode that I certainly use a lot, and I think a lot of us use a lot. It means that when we will put a track into record enable mode, and I'm going to hit play, and it will enable me to just punch in at a particular point that I want to actually record. So I'm playing back, I'm listening to my track, I want to start recording at this point, and I can either press the mouse on the transport, or I tend to use 3 on the numerical keypad, and just pressing it will enable me to enable recording and disable recording. And that's quick punch mode. And
for you trivia-minded people, what's the maximum number of punch-ins and punch-outs you can have in a single take? Anders knows.
Yeah,
I'm
sure Dave knows.
Actually, I don't know the answer to that one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you can do 200 running punches, which is a lot.
Whoa.
Yeah, nobody complains about that. Now, the other thing that's interesting about quick punch, and it's unique about quick punch and track punch as well, but we'll get into that in a second, is that despite undo your delete.
Sorry, do you want me to redo that?
Yeah.
There you go. Despite all appearances, it's not doing what you think it's doing. It's not punching in and punching out.
Yeah.
What it's doing is it's creating clips, but it's always recording.
Always recording.
And so if you take the trim tool and you go to that first clip and trim it back, it'll go all the way back to where Dave started playback.
Mm-hmm.
And if you trim the other side of that clip, it will go all the way to the point where Dave stopped playback. So it's always recording and always playing back. And you might think, well, that's a tremendous waste of space. But it actually works in your favor, because how often do we punch in and punch out at the wrong times? A lot. And so what this allows us to do is, you punch in, you punch out. If you're late or you're early on your punch ins and punch outs, no penalty. You just use the trim tool to readjust it. It's always recording, and it's always playing back, which means a couple technical things under the hood, but basically it means that you don't have any penalty really that you can't recover from if you punch in and punch out at the wrong time.
So that is one problem, that you might punch in on the wrong time, of course, but solved by the quick punch mode. But one thing that actually happens, for me at least as an engineer, is like I've got the bass player in the studio and he's supposed to be starting playing at bar number 3 or whatever. And what he does before bar 3 is like 1, 2, 3, boom, and he does something before the start of his cue, right? And in quick punch mode, you can just trim that out, and you capture that. Or if you've got the guitarist holding out a tone, and that like overdrags into the next part of the song or whatever, just trim it out. You're fine. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you can be really sneaky. And this is something that I've used. You've probably all had these singers in the studio that get really, really shy as soon as you record.
Mm-hmm.
So what you can do for them is just set up their microphone and have them listening to themselves in the headphones and just play the track through and have them singing. And you're obviously not doing record because it's not getting read. So they are just singing to the song.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do before you stop playback, after the entire song is finished, you just hit the record button for 1 second. And so if you do that for me, Dave, and then stop. And then you can trim out the entire song. So it's like a save for
it's incredibly
actually
sneaky.
record.
Can I give a little bit of social advice on this one? And this is from Andy Hagerman, who is not famous for his interpersonal skills, but I did that one time. People do it all the time, right? And I had a singer say, I just want to go through it. Don't record me, no problem. And I'm in Quickpunch because I'm always in Quickpunch, just on the off chance that something like this will happen. And we're like, oh, that was fantastic. And we did exactly that. And we're like, great. Hey. And she goes, oh, it's too bad we weren't recording. And I'm like, oh, actually we were. And she got so angry at me because I told her that I wasn't. Yeah. So you say something like, oh yeah, this is Pro Tools' new retroactive record recover feature or something like that.
Yeah, be prepared to have that.
You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't in that scenario.
Yeah. Now, there's two other modes at the bottom of this list, and these are two modes that aren't in Pro Tools Artist or Pro Tools Studio. They're only in Pro Tools Ultimate. And they're really variations on the two different modes. So Track Punch is just like Quick Punch, but you can enable or disable tracks individually. So with Quick Punch, if you had 5 tracks record armed, where every time you punched in and punched out, all 5 of those tracks would punch in and punch out. Mm-hmm. But in Track Punch, so if Dave, you go ahead and start playback here. If you go ahead and click the record arm button on, I don't know, the see you see what he's doing right now. He's a better teacher than I am. And so what he can do is he can selectively punch in and punch out on individual tracks. That's not the way Quick Punch works. Quick Punch, all record-enabled tracks will start and stop at the same time. Track Punch is a little bit different. And Destructive Punch is the same kind of thing. It can destructively punch in and punch out on different tracks at different times.
Yeah, and so the recording mode that our viewer here asked about is, of course, use Quick Punch mode. That will do exactly what you want.
I usually actually have Quick Punch on almost constantly, just enabled, just on the off chance that I might want to pop something in.
Yeah, there are a couple of caveats, as you usually say. For every track that you have in record enabled, Pro Tools is actually recording and also using the double voice. So if it's a stereo track, it's using 2 extra voices and needs to process that, of course, and it constantly saves stuff to your hard drive. So just be aware of that. That usually isn't a problem with today's computers and hard drives. But if you have an orchestra with 80 recording inputs and you flick them all into Quick Punch mode to do some punching in, you might end up with a huge problem.
You might in those situations. Now, one caveat to your caveat is that if you play and then stop without punching in at least one time, that file is discarded.
Yeah.
So it's not like you'll chow down on a hard drive, just by having Quick Punch on. You actually have to put a clip on the timeline to tell Pro Tools that's a audio file that you want to keep.
Yeah, totally. But as we said, depending on how many tracks you record, enable at the time.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. You guys are magnificent.
You too, Dave.
No, you're magnificent.
Best, man.
I hope that was useful to a lot of you, and I hope that helps Shari make a decision as to which record mode he's going to be using. And I think that it's unanimous. He's going to live in that mode just like the rest of us. Quick Punch is the mode for you. So if you got a lot out of that episode, it would help us greatly if you could stick a thumbs up on our video. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. We're usually releasing every week. I think we've done so for the last 82 episodes, come hell or high water. We've done pretty well. And if you head over to ProToolsAnswers.com, you can subscribe over there, and Andy will send you a little email every so often to let you know what we're up to. And you can join our inner circle there as well, where there are some benefits, including masterclasses with 1, 2, or maybe all 3 of us every month, as well as exclusive access to our closed Discord community of Pro Tools enthusiasts. And the guys are loving it in there, right? It's a really nice place to hang out, so hopefully you'll come and join us as well. So thank you very much to Anders, thank you very much to Andy, and thank you very much to you guys for watching. Did you tell them
about the new feature, YouTube feature that we got on our channel? Apparently it is, if you subscribe to our channel and hit the like button and the bell, your entire page will go golden. You need to try it out right now. That was a bad one. Yeah, sorry.
Keep that in. Do not cut that.
You need to edit that out.
Keep it in.
I might just keep that one in.
It stays. Let's vote. It's in.
Anders, you know that editing out thing never works out well for you, right?
Yeah, for me it never does.
Although there is something, if you Google Andy Hagerman, it actually resets the US nuclear launch codes. So give that one a go. We'll just leave that there. This is Pro Tools Answers. We're out.